Hey everyone, I wanted to talk to you today about hoarding. It's something I know quite a bit about through experiences with my loved ones, and it's something that impacts a lot of women. So I would really like to sort of talk about what that's looked like in my life as a bystander of hoarding, and how I know that it has impacted other people. So Um, there's three women who I know personally who would fit this category. Self-described. It's not something that I would ever diagnose someone as. But through these relationships, I've learned a lot about it. So the primary person who I'm thinking of who is a hoarder is my mom, and my mom and I have really struggled with this. Because it's something that um, just because it's just come into um, the forefront of people's minds in the last decade or so. Before that, it wasn't. It was obviously a problem, but it wasn't a thing. People didn't know what to call it. People didn't know what it looked like. So, how it manifests with my mom is very much like collections of collections, and also not being able to say goodbye to things. Now, the other two people, I think it manifests a bit differently, but maybe not. But I think the emotional foundation of it is the same. So, um, for one, it's very much an inability to um, designate items their proper value. So, you know, something that you something that was made for you or given to you becomes that person rather than just a token. So it takes on the embodiment of the person who gave it to you, and it's almost like if you try to get rid of it, you're destroying your relationship with that person, or you're hurting that person, whether they know or not. They will most likely never know if you got rid of it. And the last person is someone who is paralyzed by um, everyday things on what to do with them. So if something comes into your life and you're not sure, like, am I supposed to recycle this or throw this out? Well, that type of hoarder will keep it, because the paralysis is so strong that it's easier to just put it down than try to figure out sort of the right thing to do with it. So with my mom, they used to call you a pack rat and things like that. And it was very much kind of like a normal thing. Lots of people did that. My dad is kind of a hoarder too. With, he has 6 sets of tools of everything that you would ever need. And he has emotional connections to things too, but for the most part, it's not moving things through your life the way that people usually do. So if you acquire something and you already have one of it, normally you might give that second one away or replace your old one with the new one that came into your life. But a lot of hoarders will just continue to collect and gain these things. So with my mom growing up, she's an artist, and she's a wonderful artist. She's a painter, she's a fabric artist, found object artist. Like, she does all sorts of amazing, stunning things. But she has a problem with letting go. Um, so she would give me things, beautiful things. Sometimes she made them, and sometimes, she worked in a I guess like a tourist shop kind of thing, but with local artists, like a gallery. Um, so she would bring gifts home and things like that, and she would sort of fill up my life with her things. And I don't have the same emotional attachment to things because I think a lot of it has to do with the idea of permanence in relationships. Like, I understand that the love people give me, it's okay if it's fleeting. It's okay if it doesn't last forever. It doesn't mean that that person doesn't love me or like me or that I've done something wrong. I value my relationships, but they're not the sum of me as a person, and I can move on if I know that those relationships have come to a conclusion. So I would, first of all, like most of my friends know not to give me things because I'm pretty ruthless. Like something comes into my life, even if it was a gift or a homemade gift, like I'll love it and appreciate it and adore it and probably, take a picture of it, and I'll definitely write about it in my journal. But will I keep it with me forever until the day I die? No, I will not. Um, so I think that's the boundary that my mom was really struggling with, was the I'm going to keep all of this stuff until the day I die. And she really, very much filled a house full of things, and then you start to move, so you pack everything. There was never any sussing through anything, or saying like, this is nice but I have three. Like it was just, so every time we moved there would suddenly be another room full of boxes that never got unpacked, full of things that she didn't know how to let go of. So, for a lot of hoarders, it's the idea that the thing is the memory itself, and if you let go of the thing, then you no longer have the memory. So it can feel very disrespectful to a hoarder to ever let go of something that was given to you thoughtfully. And a phrase that I use to help with the sorting, because this has been my position a few times in my life, is that we are not the custodian of other people's good intentions. And I forget where I first heard that, but it's the idea that you're not responsible for other people's desire to make a good impression on you, almost. So if someone gives you a, okay, those they're like the little gift boxes that you get year round, and they're horrible, and they they'll have like your body wash and your bubble bath and all those, like, you get them at Christmas and other holidays, and they're kind of like for people who don't really know you all that well. They may give you that, like, they know one thing about you, like your favorite smell is vanilla. Well, here's this gift box of all things vanilla. And now it's your responsibility to do something with all of these. So you can either use them all, like that's going to take forever since you got 4 of those boxes for Christmas this year alone. You can, display them for, and this is something that I do, display it for the next time that person comes over. And, if you've used it once, to me, if you've used it once, that is a wonderful gift. If I give you something and you use it once, awesome. And if I give you something and you don't like it and you get rid of it, you're my hero. Like, my feelings will never be hurt if you move something out of your life. Because it's got to be done. There's just too much stuff in privileged Western people's lives to hold on to it. And I think that is part of the paralysis too, this idea that, like, there's 2 parts to it. There's the I'm going to use this one day. What will happen if I don't have this anymore? What will I do if the shit hits the fan and I need, 3 balls of rubber bands and, a basket of paper clips and keys to who knows what? Maybe I'll know one day. And also the idea that you're privileged to have this stuff in the first place, so you can't just throw it out, because how lucky are you that you even have it? So many people have so much less, and this is true. But it is not a good enough reason to hoard. It's not a good enough reason to get stuck in paralysis. So if you can, like, where I live, there's a pretty big system of donating. Like, it goes to one place, and if they don't use it, it goes to the next place, and they don't use it, all the way down to, gets put in fabric recycling and things like that, for clothing specifically. But it can always go somewhere. And the fact is, sometimes things do end up in the landfill, and that's a result of a world that doesn't have a closed loop, sustainable system. So you can work toward that too. You don't have to just, throw everything out and then just have everything come back, because a lot of times that's what happens with hoarders. They'll clear the hoard, and then, oh my gosh, I have so much space, and the hoard fills back up. That has happened many times in my mom's life, actually, and it's hard to watch, because hoarding is a visual manifestation of depression. It's what depression looks like when it's visible, and it can be really debilitating for the person who's experiencing it. But I also want to speak to the people in that person's life who really just wants to go about her life. Like, I'll never forget telling my mom as an adult for the first time that I used to take garbage bags like to school with me to get rid of some of the stuff that she had hoarded in my room or hoarded around the house. Or I used to hide things in recycle bags or donation bags just to get it out of the house because I knew she didn't know it was there. I knew she hadn't looked in that certain area, for 6 years. So let's move on. But I am a minimalist, and I'm someone who doesn't foster emotional attachment with things because I have strong relationships. So I think a lot of hoarding comes from the fact that they don't have strong relationships to begin with. Um, so the solution to hoarding isn't cleaning your house. The solution to hoarding isn't having a crew come in and traumatize you by just throwing out everything that you've maintained an emotional relationship with over the decades of your life. The solution to hoarding is relationships, it's community, it's love, it's support. So you really need to foster those things before you can try to have any sort of positive impact on a hoarder. And I think just your presence being there trying to work through the hoard is that community, is that relationship, enough that you're giving them the strength just in your presence and your acceptance and your non-judgmental reactions to move through this disorder. So it's really helpful to have other people there with them when they're working through this, because I don't know of very many hoarders who can do it alone, who can go through their belongings by themselves, and they want to, because there is the shame factor, and the shame factor with hoarding is huge. It's this idea, like shame is this idea that I'm a bad person, I'm bad, I'm wrong, there's something wrong with me. Whereas guilt, it can be a motivating factor because it's like I did something bad, or I supported something bad, or I participated in something that was shitty or not okay. But there's room to grow because it's something you did, it's not something that you are. But with shame, there's this idea that it's an intrinsic part of you that can't be changed. You are a bad person. And with hoarding, that's huge. So because hoarding takes up physical space, there's also the issue of what falls behind the space. And if you have pets, then obviously there's smells, and there can be lots of insects and things like that. There's a lot of things that we have a cultural aversion to, that is connected with hoarding just by nature of what it manifests as a collection of things. So the more things you have, the more space there is for things to hide in the nooks and crannies. And I think that's where a lot of the shame comes from. Like, no one's hoard is clean. No one's hoard is like, no one vacuums behind their hoard, and no one dusts the top of their hoard. Unfortunately, because of the complete overwhelm of this situation, it does become very much just invisible. So you'll find a lot of hoarders who, like, even though they have the shame that they won't let people in their homes, which again, like, is very alienating and just serves to further the isolation that these people already feel. But there's also a degree of invisibility. Like, they don't see it the way that you would, especially if you're raised in it, and it's just so normal. And it's really easy to go in the opposite direction. Like, what I grew up in such rebellion against things that it took me a really long time in my life to be okay with keeping something that was important to me. So that's an interesting part of the journey too. And like, I have to analyze things from two sides. Like, am I overreacting to this belonging, or because I just want to get rid of it because it's a thing and I don't want it in my life because I'm afraid of what it could become? Or am I underreacting and making excuses for things that very well could be hoarding behavior? Like, I just counted the plants in my room and there are 50. And okay, so like, a woman who, identifies as a hoarder gave me 7 of them yesterday. So that's good. Move them out of her house and into mine, and books and things like that. So I guess what the bottom line is, does it bring you joy? And something I know about my mom's junk drawer is that it never brought her joy. It only brought her frustration and um, and just this feeling of being lost. And just like with everything in our consumerist patriarchal culture, at the root is a sense of being less worthy. And I think that that's a lot of what my mom struggles with, and she does know I'm making this video. I asked her if it was okay, and she thinks it's important to talk about, and so do I. So, it's this sense that, like, if you don't feel lovable and someone gives you something that says that they were thinking of you, even if it's one of those prepackaged, vanilla across the board body wash sets, that feels like love. And if you don't have a lot of that, if you're lacking that, or if love has been used against you in a cruel way, in an abusive way, which of course, as we know, is not love, when things start to feel like love because you're not really familiar with what love actually feels like in terms of a reciprocal positive relationship, then you're going to keep those things because they're the closest you've ever felt to love. And so it's impossible to blame people who experience this, because it makes such perfect sense. It makes such sense. And to look at my life and know that, like, I am lucky and blessed enough to have had so much love that I feel confident in my relationships to people enough that I don't need to create relationships with things. Like, that is a wonderful place to arrive, and so few people can actually get there. So it definitely becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, my relationships aren't very strong, but when I am given something from a place of love, it feels like love. I keep the thing, but I don't work on the relationship as much, because here's the evidence: as long as I keep this, I'm good. But the truth is, it's the relationship that needs fostering. It's not the things that need keeping. Your home is not a repository for physical representations of inadequate expressions of love. The solution is not to give and receive more things. But I think we have seen it so many times, and our culture so encourages it. And, in every store, all it is a cycle of holidays where you buy things and give them away. There's no downtime from this. It is just giving and receiving. And that does not, in reality, translate to love. But when you don't have any evidence to the contrary, then that's all you have. You have to believe that things are love, because you don't know where else it comes from, how else to get it, what else it looks like. So part of what people can do to either help people who identify as hoarders, or people who you may know have a problem but they're not able to arrive at that label, and who cares, or if you have that concern yourself that that's what your life is starting to look like, as to what hoarding is or looks like, which probably would have been helpful at the beginning of the video, is again a huge, overwhelming amalgam of belongings and things that are overvalued and undercared for, and that take up so much space, either physical or emotional, but don't bring you joy. So I think the joylessness is a really big part of it, and needs to be kept in consideration, because when I go through hoards with loved ones, like, I know the things that they're going to want to keep. and I know the things that they mustn't, honestly, and the things that they're gonna have a real struggle with. And as you work through it, like, this patience is key, because you go through it item by item. And this is what really frustrated me about those shows, where they would just like have a crew of strangers come into your personal hell and also your sanctity, and touch all your things that to you are not things, but they're memories, and they are love, and to throw them out on tarps in the yard and say, give you three options. Like, one really important option when going through a hoard is think about it later. And they don't give you that. It's either donate, trash, or keep. And your keep pile is only allowed to be, you know, more minimal than a person who doesn't identify as a hoarder. So you're trying to take a hoarder from up here, and this is normal, to down here, and I shouldn't say normal, but average. When all they really want to do is just get a bit closer to average, and that's okay. That's a wonderful place to be. We don't have to be perfect, and we certainly don't have to be more than perfect. So how traumatic must it be for someone who has a home full of things that are what she thinks is love, and to see them on the front lawn in a trash pile? Like, I can't think of anything more distressing. So you have to be patient, you have to be dedicated, you have to be committed. Do it a couple hours at a time. Do it, and they have to work on it too. Like, it can't just be they only do it when you come over, because then that creates a dependency that means that once you're out of the picture, the hoard is going to come back. But as you're going through it, you're addressing the idea that this is a beautiful thing. Tell me the story. Why do you love this so much? What does this mean to you? And you have to listen to the story of these beloved items before they can let it go. Because as soon as they tell you that story out loud, it's like they remember that it's real. It's like they can let go of the thing, because look, I remembered the story. It's up here. I won't forget it if I say goodbye to this thing. So, and you can learn a lot about people that way too. Like, I learned most of my mom's stories by going through her hoard with her. And do you think that if she passed on her hoard to me, I could look at, a certain item and say, oh, this was the story that my mom told me? No, I couldn't. But I remember the time that I spent with her, and I remember getting to know her tells and her state of overwhelm. Like, and as distressing as that was for both of us, because I was a bit parentified in those experiences, it was bonding too. And really, like, so I'm sitting there loving her and giving her time and space to work through these stories, and she's having the opportunity to share. And then as soon as you tell the story, it's like, oh, I get it. Like, I don't have to keep this thing to remember that love. And so, no, you're not going to get rid of everything that your grandma has ever passed to you, but maybe you can keep three things that remind you of, one, her voice, and two, that summer you spent together, and three, a sweater she made you that was crafted with love. Like, you don't have to keep everything that everyone has ever given to you or passed along. You won't forget. The love lives in your heart. The things that were given with love, the love is not attached to the thing. It's yours. They gave it to you. You keep the love. The thing does not hold any love. And in fact, if you hold on to something and resent it, or wish you didn't have to, or wish you had some way of getting rid of it without that person ever knowing, or without feeling like you were hurting them, then you've actually imbued that thing with a lot of energy that's the opposite of love. So if you can find a way to recognize that the love of belongings, and the love of gifts, and the love of things is attached to you and not the item, then I think you've taken a really huge step. So if you're doing this by yourself, if you're going through a hoard by yourself, like, write it down. Take a picture of it maybe, and then write a little caption on it. And post it. Make a blog about it. Like, do something with it that's creative. because just going through and cleaning is not going to address the root of the problem. And of course there are hoarders who hoard more than just gifts from friends. Like, those are just the things that I've noticed are the hardest to get rid of. But so that may form like sort of the foundation of a hoard. Those are the things that you kept and never let go of, and then on top of that, because you have this foundation, you're way more apt to keep other things. You're way more apt to try to replicate the feeling of love through shopping. Um, so so you're trying to bring back those feelings and recreate those feelings that you got from gifts or from other things that came into your life in positive ways, but you're not addressing the fact that the issue is not that you need a thing, it's that you need a feeling. So if you can go to the root, get the feeling, get the positive reinforcement, get the love, then you don't need to do the shopping, right? Because that feeling from shopping is just you seeking love, good feelings. And then the love that you get from your relationships aren't going to weigh you down. They're going to lighten you. So when you've created this foundation and you've already accepted that you're not going to get rid of stuff, then it's really easy to pile more and more on top of it. Things that most people would throw in the garbage, let alone donate or recycle or try to sell. So you're really creating a world of things that come into your life and never leave it. And I think that's a really strong metaphor for relationships. Like, we have to learn to let go. If a relationship no longer serves us and all we have left are the debris, the detritus, like, it's time to purge. And you're allowed to do that with people and with negative relationships and negative experiences. You don't have to file them forever whenever you need a little self-flagellation. You don't have to just remember, oh, that relationship I had with, my former best friend. Well, let's go over in detail how bad it felt when that all fell apart. Let it go. Let it go with the things. And grow, right? Like, I think our lives, we're kind of like snakes in the sense that we shed our skin, and that's okay. That is how you grow. But if your skin, if your hoard, if it's so tight that you can't move anymore, you're never going to shed that skin. You're going to keep carrying it around with you even after it's dragging everything behind you. It's not serving you any longer, but you don't know how to let it go. And you shed your skin and you're able to grow. Like, we need that space, that freedom to grow. And if you keep a home full of things, you're really stuck. It's really hard to move with a hoard. It's really hard to have people over to foster relationships. It's really hard to even like get your cable set up and things like that. Like, it can be so embarrassing. And again, that's that prophecy, self-fulfilling prophecy. If I'm afraid to let people in because I have no love in my life, and I don't know what it feels like, and I don't know when it's genuine, and I've been hurt so many times, so I'll go shopping and get the feelings of love, and then add to my hoard, and then my hoard keeps people from coming into my home because I'm so embarrassed that it almost becomes you add to your hoard to keep people away. And in reality, you don't want that. You, even at the very least, like, if you can't create a really healthy dynamic of relationships in your life, even if you're really struggling to build that community, make it more possible, make it more likely, and fall in love with the things that you do have. Like, there were so many times with my mom going through the hoard where she'd be like, I haven't thought about this in years. I used to love this. And it's like, if this wasn't buried under so much shit, you could have loved it all along, but you forgot about it because there's so much other junk taking up the space. So it's like, minimize, keep the things that remind you or are most important to you, remind you of love the most, are so positive and important, and get rid of everything else. Because everything is just, it's just space junk, orbiting the planet of your life, that you don't know how to get rid of. It's just come into your orbit, and there's the moon sitting right there trying to glow and be lovely, and you've forgotten all about it because all the space junk is in front of it and you can't even see it clearly anymore. Let the moon shine, like let your true beloved belongings shine. Make space for them, make space for you, make space so that you can move freely. So there's a lot of freedom to be had if we can move through this issue, as a team, as a community, as a society. And this is very much, in some ways like a first world problem. This is not something that everyone struggles with or every culture struggles with. It is unique to consumerist cultures. So it's also pretty unique to poverty, which is really interesting because obviously, like, a lot of items that people hoard are expensive. Clothing and things like that, but it's that replacing love with things, and the less love you have, the more things you need. So, there's also the tyranny of poverty in that it's not like you could, instead of going shopping that day, go on a vacation. You can't. The gap in finances is too big, but you can go shopping. It's immediate, it's right there, it's going to serve your purpose, and there is the rush. So, there's no judgment to be had for someone who experiences this, because I've seen firsthand and experienced firsthand how devastating it can be. And they're not unaware for the most part. Like, hoarders, they really know that there's a problem. They just don't know where to start. It's very distracting to have to look through a room of visual noise. It's hard to know where to go. And so, maybe we can talk more about advice in another video, because this was really just trying to address the root of it. But it's one piece at a time. So some of the things that I've learned is put it away, not down, because people who don't have designated systems of things just put everything down because every surface is the same. It's fair game. There's no system. So you need to figure out how to make a system, but to start a system you need to have space. It can be really hard to know where to start, and I get that. So creating systems, what do you, all laundry has to go away right away, or this is your toolkit and all tools go in the toolkit. It seems really obvious, but when you don't have space to collect those things together in the first place, it's really just a free-for-all. Make the space, clear out your first layer, of belongings, the stuff you don't want, but you haven't been able to get to, and then create the systems, in step 2. And give yourself a lot of time and space and love, and share this, however you can. If you want to talk about it on Facebook and get the support of your friends that way, that would be really helpful, I'm sure. And let go of the shame, because it's not yours. The shame is not yours. It does not belong to you. You're not a bad person because you're a hoarder. At all. There's no shame. It's just a problem. It's just a disorder. It's just manifestation of depression. So let's get to the root and resolve the lack of real relationships and the lack of real expressions of love, and address the mental health issues too. I'm not saying that depression can be resolved with just tons of love, although it never hurts. So there is hope at the end of a hoard, the bottom of a hoard. So that's my hoarding video. That's my first one. I can talk a bit more about how it impacted me growing up, because it really did have a huge impact on me emotionally, and it was very confusing to live in that kind of chaos. and to not have my own space. I'll never forget, um, as a response to my mom's boyfriend being abusive, I threw out all my things. I threw out all my belongings. I kept a few things. I had no surfaces in my room. I mean, I had no, all the surfaces in my room were empty. I hid all my belongings that I couldn't get rid of in my closet, and then I felt safe. So, that's kind of interesting. When people want to hurt you, they'll use your things against you, and if I had no things, then I was safe. So I could see that hoarding made my mom vulnerable in many ways. So, as someone who could not stand being vulnerable as a young person, I made that connection very strongly that if I don't have things, if I don't love anything, I'm safe. So, getting to fall back in love with having my surfaces used to hold things like plants has been a huge journey. But I still throw shit out all the time. I throw it all out, and not always in the garbage. Like, I do work really hard to recycle. Mostly I just try to give things away. I'll keep things if I know, oh, I bet someone's gonna really need this. But if it doesn't come up and they don't need it in the next month, forget it, it's out of there. I don't hold on to things because I have a different relationship with things than I do with people, and I cherish my relationships with people more. So, thank you so much for watching. It was a bit of a wild ride, a bit of a journey. This is going to be a long one, but I really appreciate you walking through this with me. And, if you've ever experienced this, or if you know someone who has, I'd love to have those conversations in the comments as always. You can find me on other social media as Woman Walking Away. And yeah, so if you can like and subscribe or share this, that would go a long way for me. But if not, that's okay too. If it was just a one-time thing, thank you so much for coming, and I will see you the next time I decide to make a video. Okay, thank you.